York's classic rock, Q1043.
I say good morning, but it's really afternoon where Luke Eve is because he's in Spain, but I thought he was in Australia because he's Australian. And the reason and he also lives in LA, of course. And the reason I have Luke Eve with me is a movie that entertained me. And oh my God, do we still need to be entertained in the pandemic? Yes, we do. And this was an unusual rom-com called I Met a Girl. I didn't recognize anyone in it. It's set in Australia, but never mind. What intrigued me was the setup. Now, finding love is difficult enough. Finding love amid a mental illness is another animal altogether. And the mental illness in this case was schizophrenia, correct, Luke Eve?
That's correct.
The hearing voices and the must be on meds, or, you know, you're going to do something totally inappropriate or totally freak out. So how did this all come about?
Wow. How much time do we have?
We have 15 minutes.
So the writer, Glenn Dolman, and I had been working together for a number of years. We had previously made a digital series or a web series together called High Life, which was about a teenage girl with bipolar disorder. And whilst we were making that, in the background, we had started work on this particular project. So Glenn and I have always been interested in stories about mental health and mental illness. And that really the genesis was that when Glenn was younger, growing up, his best friend was diagnosed with bipolar and he sadly took his own life. So that incident, I think, shaped Glenn not only as a writer, but as a person. And when we met, we just clicked because we both had an interest in stories about mental health.
You know, and it's so relatable, especially now because of the worldwide pandemic and because of the shutting in, and mental illness is just, even those who would not ordinarily be anxious or depressed. I read a figure, I think it was last week, that 80% of American men, at least, not women, but it's hitting men harder, have felt more stress in the pandemic. 80%.
Wow. And I'm not surprised. You know, I think what we're currently living through is, you know, unprecedented. It's very alienating. And it's a tough thing to deal with, especially if you're on your own. I think that would be really tricky. But I've been seeing very similar statistics from all around the world, and it's very alarming. And so I'm sort of hoping that this film, being watched and being available during this particular point in time, might provide some hope for people as well.
And what I love about I Met a Girl, which, by the way, you can get on demand online, or if you can find a theater that's open in our area. Most of our theaters are not open. They're open in New Jersey at 25%, but mostly not open. But what I loved is that, you know, we're not laughing at the lead. We are, you know, I just love the, you know, the realistic look of this is what happens and this is how horrible it is for the family to handle. And his brother, the two of them are super, super close, but the brother's wife, and he had lived with the brother and his wife, but the brother's wife is now finally pregnant after he destroyed their wedding with his inappropriate speeches from performing from the stage because of the mental illness. And they decide that he can no longer live with them. And that kind of sets the stage of, well, you know, what does he do now? And then he finds love, but then you're wondering till the end, did he make up this woman in his head, or was she real? So I just love the way it was handled. You held my interest till the very end because I didn't know where it was going to go, and it's not predictable.
Well, that's a huge compliment, and I thank you for that. It was something we worked really hard on, and you're right about, you know, we wanted to make a story that having made previous series about mental health, we try to come at it from a really respectful place. We do a ton of research, and we try to make it very authentic and truthful. And, being with people that have a mental illness, it's not all tragedy. It's not all sadness. There are some funny moments. It can be hilariously funny that some of these things that happen. And so we wanted to tackle that, but also show the flip side that, if it's not noticed or you're not with somebody that loves you and can look after you, then sometimes these things can spiral out of control. And unfortunately, that's what happens with poor Devon in our film. And then, we really try to take you on that journey with him. And by being really in his head a lot of the film, you're sort of uncertain as to the things that he's seeing. Are they real? Are they not? Did he invent Lucy? Is she real? So I'm really glad that you said that. I think that was the thing that we concentrated hardest on was Devon's mental illness and the portrayal of that, and whether or not you're along for the ride with him. And I think a lot of that comes down to Brenton Thwaites, the lead actor who plays Devon. He did a lot of research and he really dived in and I thought did a really beautiful job.
Did you test out the film in the mental health community before you decided it was a wrap?
Yeah, in actual fact, so at the time of, before we began filming, we actually sent the script to a number of mental health organizations in Australia. And they looked at it and approved it and loved the angle that we were taking. Then both Brenton and Joel, who plays Devon's brother Nick in the film, they both were hooked up with people that either had schizophrenia or lived with somebody that had schizophrenia. So again, we're able to kind of really tap into the mental illness and come at it from a place of authenticity. And then even at the end, once we finished the film, we sent it back to a couple of those organizations and they loved it. So I think for us, that was really important, making sure that it felt real and it felt respectable, and that we'd done a good job on that front.
I'm speaking with Luke Eve. He is the director of I Met a Girl. You can watch it on demand. It is out. It's set in Australia. It's a very unusual rom-com because the lead has schizophrenia. And so it's serious and comedic at the same time and still a love story. But another thing that I just love about this movie is that this is something we need to talk about. This is something, mental illness, whether it's anxiety or it's schizophrenia or it's bipolar, if it's depression, we need to be able to say that we have it without shame. I had breast cancer. I was not ashamed I had breast cancer. But if I was diagnosed as bipolar, would I have shared that with my audience? I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know, because there is still that stigma, and we're going to continue that stigma the longer we don't talk about it.
I completely agree. And, the start of my journey in dealing with these projects and this kind of subject matter was a number of years ago. I started and I did a series called Low Life. So Low Life came before the series I did with Glenn called High Life. And Low Life was a semi-autobiographical story about a man with depression. So I was tapping into my own battles and struggles with depression throughout my life. And it felt good to be able to talk about it and to be able to tackle it. And I felt like, even though it was a very personal story, it really found an audience. And I got a lot of strength from that and realized that there was a real need for people to be able to see themselves represented on screen, who might have a mental illness. And often I'd seen a lot of projects that didn't tackle it in perhaps the way it could have been. And so I'm really proud of the work that we've done in the last few shows in tackling that kind of subject matter, and then starting a discourse and engaging with people in the mental health community. And already, even though the film has only been out for a week or so, I've received like dozens of messages from people saying that they loved the mental health story. They loved the portrayal of schizophrenia. They felt like it was really authentic. And I think that's great, because at the same time, it's not a hard-hitting portrayal of mental illness in a way. It tries to tackle it, but it wraps it up in hopefully a fairly entertaining and romantic and uplifting story.
So can we access Low Life at all?
Yeah, Low Life and High Life are both available on Vimeo on demand. So
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
writing it down
Okay, great.
because I want to check it out. All right. I also want to talk to you about something else. This is something I've been discussing with virtually every director I've been interviewing during the pandemic. You know, the way we watch movies has changed during the pandemic. We can't go to movie theaters. Now, in my mind, when you get used to watching most movies at home, it's awfully hard to put the genie back in the bottle once we go back in theaters, because there are certain movies you must see in a
Yeah.
movie theater to
Yeah.
truly appreciate. And I don't mean to denigrate, for example, your film in any way, but I can watch your movie at home and be satisfied.
Right.
Every single director I've talked to has disagreed with me. No, everyone wants to go, can't wait to go back in theaters, and they ignore the fact that, look, it's expensive. It's not only that, you can do it from your own home. How do we go back? How do you walk back from that? Now, am I crazy or what?
Look, I think it's a great question, and I don't think there's a single director that is going to want you to watch their film on their iPhone or
Right.
however. I mean, we all make a movie because we want to show it in the cinema because it looks and sounds amazing, but it's really about the communal experience for me. It's like, yes, it's going to look and sound better, obviously, in a big theater, but I would love to watch it with an audience, and an audience can, they react from one another. So I miss that. I miss the communal aspect of watching a movie. A friend back in Australia told me she was going to the cinema a couple of weeks ago, and I almost burst into tears because I just haven't been to see a movie at the cinema for so long. But as a filmmaker and as a storyteller, to be totally honest, I don't really mind the way you watch the movie. I'm just really happy that the film is finally out. It's been such a tumultuous release pattern. We didn't know what was going to happen. Was it going to be stalled or shelved? And then it was meant to be in cinemas, but now people are watching it video on demand. And I'm happy. I would rather people see the movie than not see it at all. And if that means watching it on like their laptop or on their iPad while lying in bed, I don't care. As long as they get to engage with the story and they like it, I'm happy.
But do you think moving forward, once we're no longer in the pandemic, do you think film distributors will offer the option of download it or go to the theaters?
Look, I think there's been a trend towards that happening a little bit anyway, that whole idea of the day and date release. And I feel like people that love going to the cinema, like myself, will still go, but there's a lot of other people that can't for a number of reasons. Like you say, it's more expensive. They've got kids. They haven't got time, all of that stuff. So I'm a big fan of when the film comes out at the cinema, also make it available digitally so that people can watch it on demand. I don't think you're going to lose audiences. Like I said, people that love going to the movies will still go. And people that can't see it, why rob them of that opportunity? Why not use the press and the marketing and the hype that you're getting at the time? Why not use that for people to be able to watch it at home in their own time as well? So I'm a big fan of that. I still, like you say, I think there's going to be huge movies that still would beckon people to come and, see it at the cinema. And that's great. I don't think the cinema will disappear.
And how has the pandemic been for you? How have you handled it? And where? Have you been in Spain all this time? I mean, because who wants to take a flight?
Well, again, this is, I'll give you the abridged version here. But so in March, I came to Spain to get married to my Spanish fiance.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But unfortunately, it was right as the pandemic hit. So 2 days out from the wedding, we had to cancel the wedding. And then we went into a very, very strict lockdown over here. And to top it off, we went into a very strict lockdown with my mum, who had flown all the way over from Australia for the wedding. So here we were, we just came to the wedding. My fiance and myself and my mum cooped up in a house for 3 months together. So that's been my life. I'm still here. My mum has gone back to Australia, but I'm still here. And we're trying to figure out a plan to get back to LA, obviously, but waiting for things to settle down and pick up a little.
Well, it sounds like, Luke Eve, you have another movie that you just lived in your own life that you should bring to the screen, because we know we're going to have the pandemic movies flooding us before too long. But anyway, we're
Well,
out of time. We're out
you
of time.
know this, but let me tell you very
Yeah.
quickly, Shelley. But while we were in lockdown, I actually made a complete series on a mobile phone. So we
Oh,
actually filmed the entire scenario because it was such a unique position to be in lockdown with your mum and your fiance. And it's called Cancelled, and it's on Facebook, and we've had over 2 million views, and it's kind of struck up quite an audience, actually, weirdly enough. So there you
awesome.
go.
Awesome.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.